What's up? This is Patrick Hayes, and today I want to talk about something that I call paradigm confirmation bias. Now, I had heard the term confirmation bias, and it totally hit the spot for me when I heard it, but I wanted to articulate it a little more deeper, so I added paradigm to the beginning of it, paradigm confirmation bias, or P.C.B. for short. And this is what I'm calling the number one thing that keeps us trapped inside a box. And the reason for that is because a paradigm confirmation bias is a psychological bias that works to reinforce the paradigm that we're already existing within. So essentially it becomes like or can become a misinterpretive predisposition in which we start misinterpreting our reality in a way that helps us to reinforce our perspective of how we think the reality is, no matter how delusional that can become. And as we start looking into human psychology and we start studying the culture, you can see how many people have this extreme paradigm confirmation bias that oftentimes really keeps them limited within these really small boxes of perception. One really obvious one, at least it's obvious to me, is the one of Western medical science. Over the course of many years, I've ran into so many different people that, either have a family member with terminal illness or have had terminal illness themselves. And, we start getting into conversation and I'd be trying to kind of offer different resources or alternative therapy solutions. But essentially what would end up happening between us is I would feel this dissonance, and these people would really work to convince me that they've tried everything, that the Western medical science was the only route to go, and that they're pretty much hopeless and either they or one of their family members is going to die and they just have to accept that. And this was, especially the first couple times this happened, I'm like, are you serious? How could you be, missing this? But as I kind of delved deeper into it, I realized that what's going on is that, these people have developed an idea of how they see the world. They have a certain paradigm. And to have to face the idea that potentially they've been lied to, or potentially there's technology that's been hidden from them, or potentially they didn't know what was going on, or they made the wrong decision about what they should do to treat their family member. When they're faced with all those kinds of scary things, they would shut down and misinterpret what I'm saying, or just not even be willing to accept anything I was saying, in order to reinforce the paradigm that they did everything they could and that was the only option they had, because that seems safer to them. And really, this is what it comes down to. It comes down to safety. We develop paradigm confirmation biases because we become comfortable with the way that we see the world, and then we feel unsafe if something comes in and starts crashing down the wall of what our beliefs are. So we start defending that. And we develop these things called paradigm confirmation biases that essentially just act like blinders that will misinterpret our reality in order to conform our interpretation to this predisposed idea of what we think the reality is. So, in kind of uncovering this and this becoming a very obvious thing, I realized the value of this term paradigm confirmation bias, because it's kind of a lot to explain, but if we can use this term more often, then it becomes more commonplace, and ideally it will become, like a meme that people are familiar with, and then we can start pinpointing it in ourselves and in others, and help give ourselves the ability to transcend some of the limited boxes that we find ourselves in. Because ultimately, the way that I like to approach life is, and I talked about this in the video I made called Blow Your Mind, I got to this point where my reality crumbled, and I found a different reality or a different paradigm that blew my mind. And I started kind of developing an insatiable desire to break my paradigm down and build a new one. And what I found was that approaching life with this willingness to let go of how we see the world and invite in new ways gives us the opportunity to really expand ourselves really to an unlimited degree. And oftentimes it's this fixed idea of what we think is true or what has been sold to us as the reality, the given assumptions that have been given to us, that really limit us from being able to, expand ourselves. So especially with these basic assumptions of, things like, the world is round, or not to say I'm a flat earther, but things like the world is round, or that, Western medical science is, the pinnacle of the evolution of science, biological science, or that you need to do something that is not fun in order to make a living, that you can't make a living, doing something that you truly love. These kind of beliefs that oftentimes were instilled into us as a child are just false. If you actually dig into it, if you're willing to accept that maybe things are different than you thought, and you start digging into this information, you'll find that most things just crumble. And actually, there's this self-reinforcing matrix going on with the universe, whereas the things that the ideas that you energetically invest in, they start to be echoed back to you by the universe. And so this is kind of like how the process of creating your own reality can rise into your favor. Whereas if you start investing in certain ideas that are extremely empowering, and you start looking for evidence of those ideas, you'll see more and more evidence in your reality, and then the reality of empowerment becomes more and more tangible and experiential. So the number one thing is to be willing to just let go of stuff. You know what? Even if it seems so logical and obvious, it's like, well, let's be open-minded here. It's a simple term for being open-minded. Let's be open-minded. I'll take a look at it. I'll let everything that I thought I know go and really take a fresh look at what reality could be and entertain that for a while and see if it serves me. And if it serves you, then we can develop a positive paradigm confirmation bias where we're looking to reinforce something that's really empowering. Now, when we develop these positive paradigm confirmation biases and we start using paradigm confirmation bias in our own favor, it's important to always be willing to question and break those paradigms, even if those paradigms seem to be extremely beneficial, even if they seem to be working really, really well. From time to time, it's sometimes good to stay open to a different paradigm and see, maybe there's something that's even better. Maybe there's a paradigm that could, maybe you have 10 points on the positive side, but you could jump that to 30 points on the positive side. And that one could work for a while, then you could jump to 80 points on the positive side. So there's no upper limit to the exponential bliss curve and the curve of empowerment and beauty that we can experience in our life when we're willing to let go of what we believe and embrace something that could be more beautiful and more powerful. So my hope for you is to be able to, maybe look at some of those rigid beliefs that you have, and even if they seem like that's the way it is, I've known this my whole life, this is just the way the world is, give it a try. Just try breaking them down, try exploring something new, and start using this term paradigm confirmation bias. Talk about it with your friends and express it, because it gives us a linguistic tool to shine the light on something that without the term is a little bit more vague and requires a bit more of a verbose explanation to get across. But if we can make this term paradigm confirmation bias more of a common term, then I think that this can become a nice flashlight in the psychology of human beings that can really help us to levitate to an experience that is more uplifting and more expanded. So thanks for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes, and I'll talk to you next time.